So I'm going to make a quick video on how to use WordPress for blogging and SEO. So SEO is search engine optimization, and the reason that authors should be blogging or posting content is to get organic, natural traffic so that they always have some visibility, and then they can get people on their email list, or they can try to, finally convert them into readers or buyers. So it can be really effective to do blogging, but a lot of authors don't really know what to blog about, how to set it up, or like the important stuff about using WordPress. So this is kind of just a basic checklist. And as an example, this is one of my many sites and half-finished projects called Webwise Writer. I set up a lot of sites like this as a place where other writers could guest post easily. So for example, one author has recently posted an article on this site, and I know that she's just testing it out, so she probably just hasn't finished setting all this stuff up, but I'm going to go through the ways that this article could be improved as an example. If you're posting a guest post on somebody else's site, you're not going to have full control over everything, and guest posts are pretty valuable. The problem with just starting your own blog is that you're not going to have very much site authority. So if you post something and 10,000 other people post something really similar, you're probably not going to show up high on Google. And if you're not on like the first page of Google, people probably aren't going to find you. It's okay to be, on the 5th page or something, but if you're on the 10th page even, no one will find you. And most people don't even go through 10 pages. It's usually just like the first or second page that people look through. For Google, this could also be other search engines. So one of the reasons that I opened up sites like this is so that other people can post articles and get links back to their site. So on the one hand, if you have articles on other websites with a high site authority, you can check, if you Google like site authority checker, you can check out different sites. So if you're pitching guest posts, you want to make sure you're finding sites that either have good authority or have consistent traffic, the right kind of traffic where your audience is actually the traffic. And so there's kind of two ways. You can post on a high traffic site, which is great for visibility, or you can post on sites that maybe don't get a lot of traffic but still have good site authority, because it means those links will tell Google that your site is an authority. If you have a bunch of links from a lot of other blogs, whether they get traffic or not, from a lot of other high site authority sites that Google trusts, those links are going to tell Google that your personal website is valuable, and they're going to start recommending your personal website. So that's why it's difficult to just start off with your own website. It's a lot easier to get started if you're also posting on other websites to get links back to your website. But if you do have control of WordPress, if you're blogging on your own website, or for example, if you're blogging on one of my sites and you have control, you'd go up to Edit Page. This site actually doesn't have a lot of stuff on it. That's something I'm going to change by building it up and posting some content. And your WordPress dashboard may look a little different depending on what themes you have set up or what plugins or other things you have set up. But mostly it's going to look like this. I'm going to go to Quick Edit if I want to see just the basic information like this. Or I'll go to Edit to actually edit the article. So one big problem up here with the title is that even though this is a really good relevant title for the content, it doesn't have any specific keywords, which means it's going to be really difficult for people to find. If they only see that in the search results, it probably won't show up in the search results because it doesn't have any keywords, but if it did show up, they wouldn't really know what it's about. So you need to add benefits and keywords for most blog posts, and you don't have to do it for everything. If you want to tell some interesting personal anecdotes in your blog as well, that's fine, but you really have to be thinking about providing value for your readers. And a lot of fiction authors will say, well, how can I blog about, these topics if I write fiction? And you still can. Like when I have a couple blogs now for young adult fiction, they get a lot of views. I just do a lot of 10 best mermaid books or 10 best vampire books for teens who like Twilight. You can write really specific pieces of content with all the keywords to get people who are looking for those things. If they're reading fiction, they're probably looking for like the best time travel books with heroic female protagonists, 2018. They're searching for things like that. So you need to kind of think about what people might be searching for, that your book might be qualified to answer that need, that pain point, the itch that they're trying to solve. And they're probably on Amazon using these keywords, but they might be just plugging it into Google as well. So you want to show up for what they're searching for. So this is kind of similar. If people are looking for, this is kind of a piece on hypnosis and positive thinking. So up here in the title, I would need to do something like, and generally with keywords, you want to have the keywords first. So like my first instinct would be to do something like this. Change your life with something like that. Change your life with hypnosis and positive thinking. That gives me a bunch of keywords. However, what you really want is to have the keywords first. So if possible, and there's kind of two ways to do this, because on the one hand, you want this to be eye-catching and you want it to make sense to readers. You want people to click on it. So when it shows up in search results, you want people to click on your link. So you need to have a lot of keywords and benefits, but you also need it to sound cool and interesting enough. So this is a perfect title. I put a guide to hypnosis and positive thinking. I was thinking hypnosis and positive thinking guide, change the input, change the output, which is specific, but not quite as humane. You kind of want it to sound like a real person, a normal person that is saying these things. So a guide to hypnosis and positive thinking. That's a little bit misleading because it's not actually a step-by-step guide. It's kind of just a short blog post. So the author's free to change that back. This is kind of just an example of some way that you can add some more keywords. So there's a picture down here, which is great. There's another picture down here. These could actually be a bit bigger. This is what the article looks like. So it's actually fine. I forgot actually this looks like it has a WordPress plugin so that you can share or tweet what you highlight, which is kind of fun. But if I scroll down, there's the other picture here. Looks pretty fine. One thing I don't see, and this is something else to talk about, is the link back to the author's website. So after changing the title up here, something else I'm going to look for are really good sentences that I can call out, because right now these are kind of blocks of paragraph of text. It's not hard to read, but you really want some headers, some bolded text. So one of the ways that you can usually do that in WordPress is with a block quote. So in the WordPress dashboard, and by the way, I didn't really say this before, if you're using this for the first time, the visual is where you would actually see the words on the page, how it's actually going to look. If you switch to text, it's going to be the code view. So then you'll see some code like this where you put the image. So generally you want to stay out of the code view unless you have to, or you know what you're doing. For example, if you want to embed a YouTube video, you'd probably have to grab the code and switch into here for the text to paste the code. Otherwise, you just go back to visual and use the visual editor. But so this is one sentence I think is really good. I'm just going to highlight that and then add right here is block quote. So I'm just going to hit that and then save it. So now that sentence should be standing out a little bit better. I'll reload the page. And now it looks like this. So that's pretty nice. This is totally going to depend on your WordPress site and what you have set up. This is done in CSS. So every CSS is a type of code that dictates the way the HTML displays. So you have like HTML, which is the code of what goes where, and then you have CSS, which is what that code will look like. And so when you select the block quote style, that's really going to depend on your WordPress theme. There are some WordPress plugins where you can customize the block quote style. What I've actually done on my personal website, Creative Indie, is I've just customized the CSS to get it looking the way I want. But even in like a basic default WordPress theme, it should look okay. It should stand out. So that's one thing you could be doing. Maybe 2 or 3 times, find your best writing, your best sentences, and just call them out like that. You can also just break the paragraphs up a little bit. Maybe take one short sentences and put it in a bold. I might do that again here. So now if I refresh the page, again, it should just be broken up a little bit more. This bold text and this font I don't actually love because it makes it a little bit hard to read. And this block quote is too close to this picture actually, so I'll have to move that picture down. But the block quote, the dark text does make it stand out a little bit. Since this is like really light gray, I could go in here and just try to change the color to make it stand out a little bit more. I can go up here and change the text color. I could also try something like, instead of a bold text, I could put it in a heading 4, heading 3. I might try one of each just to see how those look. So this is with the heading 4. I think this was with the heading 3. I actually quite like this one. It's a lot bigger and a lot bolder. It just stands out a little bit. I would maybe try to break it up. It's a little weird having this second sentence so much longer. I think that's just because of this image though. So I went back and moved some things around just a little bit. It's not perfect, but it's readable. It looks pretty good. The big text really stands out and is nice. So that's just making the whole blog post a little bit easier to read and divide it up. So a couple more quick things that we would do before we publish this. If this was your own website, one thing that you would want to try to do is link to other articles in your own website. So for example, down here, victim of random thoughts, maybe that could link back to another article. Down here under improved mindset could be linked back to another article. You kind of just want to do that for a few things so that you have some links from your article to other stuff on your website. That's what you do on your website. But since this is a guest post, you really want to make sure your article has links back to your main website. So down here under the citation, under your name, the easy way is just to take your name and to link it to your website like that. However, you should really also have a call to action. So all I'm actually going to do is go over to Julie's site and copy this tagline she has here. So down here I've added a call to action, and actually I added a link to her name before, which is fine, but see how it kind of fades out the link to a light gray. So that's actually not great for the name, which you want to be really readable, and you don't really want to have two calls to action or two different links. So I will actually unlink this one and maybe just put it in bold or a larger font. I chose H5, I think. It actually looks pretty good. So most WordPress sites will have built-in styles for heading 1 through 6, H1 through H6, and they're generally the same font with just smaller sizes. So you can use them when bold isn't quite enough. Like this bold text, like I said earlier, I don't actually love. It's kind of hard to read. I thought I had another one. Anyway, instead of the bold text, the larger text, even this is really large text, but stylistically, aesthetically, it just looks a lot better. It stands out a lot more. But then in some circumstances, when you wanted like not quite as big text, an H5 or H6 would work. So instead down here at the bottom, I say just for powerful, effective hypnosis audios and scripts, visit hypnosistoday.com. So that's a direct call to action and link back to the website, so people actually know what they're going to get and they can click on this. This particular WordPress theme also has an about the author field down here. Not every WordPress theme will have this, or sometimes it's optional. If you're going to do guest posts, or if this is going to show up on your own website, then you should customize it. This one's actually a bit too long. This is a pretty long biography, so you can see like on the bottom of every post, this is kind of too much. This is probably great for her about page on her website, but for about the author tagline on the bottom of an article, you really just want it to be like one short paragraph and even another call to action, and then going through and actually setting up this picture would help also. So mine, for example, on my website looks kind of like this, and this is not a great example. I should really redo it, but it has a picture It has a lot of links to all my different stuff, and then it has one bolded call to action, and then a link to all my social media stuff. So it's fine and functional. It's all right. I could probably do better. So we're almost done. I'm not going to go into all this format stuff. This, for most WordPress sites, will set up a different kind of post style, but I usually skip it. It's not a big deal. You do want to look at the categories. If you don't already have these categories set up, you'll need to add new categories. Sometimes WordPress themes come with a whole bunch of pre-installed categories that don't work for you that you need to delete, because this is like a spirituality blog, kind of a joint author blog where a lot of people can post articles. These were just some of the topics that I had, but other people could introduce new categories. You don't want too many. You want to like have probably less than, I would say 10. You could have more, but you want to keep your blog pretty focused on some main topics. And then you can also add some tags. So hopefully, once you start doing a bunch of tags, you'll have most used tags. But in the beginning, we can just write some down. Positive thinking, hypnosis, self-help, inspiration. You kind of just brainstorm different relevant topics, and then they'll show up here. This is just kind of for WordPress organization. And finally, an important thing to do is to go down here and choose a featured image. So this could be an image that you pulled from the article. Probably you want this to be something that's attractive to your audience. I already have some images that I pulled from free stock photo sites like Pixabay. Ideally, for a blog, you would have featured images with some text on them. This is actually just something I started doing on my site. For example, some of these now have featured images that have attractive text and attractive pictures. So the nice thing about these is if it's shared on social media, this nice image will pop up. It makes it more likely people will click on it. A lot of my stuff I'd never used featured images before, so this is kind of a big shift, but it's really the right thing to do if you're getting traffic, and if you're serious about blogging and you really want like a branded author platform. But if you're just doing like a guest post, it's not really your responsibility anyway, and it's not something I would worry about. Like if like making featured images and putting text on them, if that slows down your production schedule, then I wouldn't worry about it, because it's really like, it's kind of important if you're getting traffic. If you're not getting traffic, it doesn't matter that much anyway. But what you want to do is make sure you're putting out a lot of content. After your content starts getting traffic, then you can go back and take your highest traffic posts and clean them up, or decide to rebrand your website or whatever. That's kind of where I am now. I put out tons of content, but I didn't even like pick out featured images for them. I just left it text only because it was fast, basically. Now I'm going back through and fixing it. So it's a good idea if you can do it, but don't let it slow down your production schedule. What you do need to do though is, if you add an image, pick out a featured image and then change the title and the caption. Or I used to only add keywords up here in the title. I recently found out that's a mistake. The alt text is the one that's actually more important. So if people were searching for images, you would need keywords that tell people what your image is about, so it shows up in results. If I have to boil it down to one phrase and keyword, I might do this: hypnosis for positive thinking. That's probably too general to actually rank for anything. You're probably going to need very specific long tail keywords, which means, for example, even quitting smoking is too general. It's hard to rank for things like that. But if you put out lots of content, or if you just focus on specific smaller topics or categories. One other kind of cool tool I have on this particular blog is a WordPress title generator. I haven't put this on all my blogs, but I should on those that I allow guest posting. So you would just start off with something like hypnosis, and it would give you suggestions of titles you could use that would kind of be good titles. So for example, I type in hypnosis, and here are some topics that I could write. So this is interesting if you have a blog and you don't know what to write about, just put in your keywords. I'm sure this is just called the WordPress title generator, so you can add that to your WordPress site, add in keywords, and just see what shows up. You could brainstorm, ideally you'd brainstorm 20 or 30 blog posts. You write one a day, especially in the beginning. It's important to get some content on your blog. So maybe you don't have to write a blog a day forever. But if you do for a while, you want like 10 super good, high quality, long articles on your blog before you start sending traffic, so people can actually kind of get in and read about it. But these are really good. They say clickbaity titles. Clickbait really just means interesting titles that people are going to click on because they want the benefits. So even if it's not, quite as satisfying as the title promises, you still want them to click on the title. So you kind of have to use some things like this just to get them to click. I'm not sure why there's so much space up here on top. That's something I kind of need to fix. There's also a lot of extra space here and here. You want like the content to show up a lot higher. So in this particular setup, I don't even see the name of the blog post. So that's kind of a mistake. But apart from that, this blog post looks a lot better with the longer title and with the featured image, even though it's just like a generic background featured image. And then once you click on the actual title, because of all the large text and the spacing and stuff, it's just a little easier to read. There's a call to action down here with a link back to the website. And then you can't even see all the SEO stuff, but they will help this article to get found and be indexed. So I hope that's useful. I know a lot of people who say, blogging is a waste of time for authors because there are easier, faster ways to sell the books. Yes and no. One of the reasons I love blogging now is because not only do I get organic traffic, so I get constant leads opting into my website that I can try to build a relationship with and I can try to introduce to my books. But also, now that I'm getting more into Facebook ads, I can retarget the people who have visited my website. So if I'm really blogging well and attracting a select type of reader, the people that I'm building content for, my ideal readers. For example, on my young adult blog sites, all that content's about young adults. So I have like maybe 300 visitors a day on those sites. That's a lot of readers, potential readers per month. I could retarget those people on Facebook with a link to my new young adult fantasy book or whatever. And it's likely they will be the right audience for that book. But even if you're just, setting up your own basic WordPress website, or you want to start blogging, whether or not you're an author, these are just the basics to setting up and using SEO and making sure that you're building your blog in the right way, so it's going to continue to get traffic.